And then the last step that we're going to be involved in today is the state convention. The state convention, as in every level, they have a call to convention. The one difference with the state convention is it actually doesn't have to be published in a newspaper. The requirement is that the state chair of the executive committee must inform in writing all of the members of the state executive committee the date, time, and place of the state convention. It's the responsibility of the executive committee members to actually get that out to the members of the party. And I thought that was kind of quirky. That's something I think we all need to maybe take a look at in how they have the notification done when we get to the next convention. I think there should be some, it's not required, the state doesn't have to post it on the website, they don't, which I'm sure they do because they want your $200 or whatever it is to show up and be there. But as this movement that we're all part of continues to grow and get more involved at the party level, sorry, I've just seen some things at the old school executive committee and central committee people where we may not be real welcome at times, I guess would be a nice way to put it. But the call to convention happens. And then we have the election of state officers at every odd number convention. There is the election of the state chair and vice chair. It is the one area where the difference is very marked in how that election is handled. It is a proportioned election. So every county, they go to the county, they figure how many registered Republicans there are, and then one in every 250 is the number of delegates that are eligible for the convention. At this point, alternates can only become delegates if they don't have a full slate of delegates. So you can be elected an alternate, and if your county is allowed to have 100 delegates to the state convention, if you're elected an alternate but they have 100 delegates show up, then you're not going to have the opportunity to be seated as a delegate on the floor of the state convention. The other side of that, which is where it really makes a big difference, is if you're allowed 100 delegates and you have one person show up, their vote counts for 100 votes in the vote for chair. Because it's specified in the plan of organization that there shall be a representation for every county, for every potential delegate to the state convention to vote in the election for chair and vice chair. Now, the other side of that is, if you don't have anybody from your county show up, you don't get counted. So one of the things that as we've watched, and I'm trying to remember, Jack, how many did we figure out weren't there in Wilmington?
9 were not there in Wilmington, 16 only had one person.
So 25 additional people in selected counties would have changed the outcome of probably both the vice chair and chair's election at the last state officer's election. If you're in, it's all numbers, folks. It's simple, it's simple math. If you've got 300 delegates legal from your county, how many does Mecklenburg have, Jack? It's 700 and something, isn't it?
Something like 670.
Okay, take Mecklenburg County. If they have 50 people show up, then every one of their votes counts for 11 votes. Well, if you have an additional 10 people show up that are working within our coalition on the chair race or vice chair race, you can have a dramatic difference in the outcome. The other side of it is if you're in a county that has 50 delegates and one person showing up, if you have one additional person show up, you just took 25 votes to go the other direction.
Yeah, that happened in 2011. Wayne King, he didn't win the popular vote, he won the
He won the proportional ballot, correct. So, you know, and
That number could be way overstated. Because they're the ones that show up.
well, Guilford had a pretty good sized contingent, but, you know, and then of course, the other thing that we found out at Wilmington, I think that, and this, I'm gonna step off, this is my opinion, I think that every state convention where the chair and vice chair are elected must or should be held somewhere near the central location of the state. Because there was a lot of slanting done in Wilmington against basically every county west of I-77. That's why, you know, and of course the convention this year is in Charlotte, which is, you know, I think you should, you know, that convention should go back and forth probably between Charlotte and Greensboro as far as where, or Charlotte, Greensboro, and Raleigh, where you keep it where it's of at least reasonable access, because there are a lot of people that I think would have showed up in Wilmington because there was a sort of new uprising going on within the party. But it's awful hard if you live in Cleveland County to drive to Wilmington and back for a one-day event. And we're just, you know, 2 counties the other side of Charlotte. Imagine what it does for people in Henderson or Buncombe or Watauga or Cherokee. I mean, you know, you get to the counties out in the West End, and then the same thing, you know, I know that Asheville is somewhere on the rotational schedule. And to me, if they're going to hold it in Wilmington, or they're going to hold it in Fayetteville, or they're going to hold it in Asheville, that needs to be done on an even numbered year, which is really more of a party than a real convention. But but for the business of the party, the conventions in the odd numbered years is where it happens, because that's where, and the thing is, I didn't know this until I showed up in Wilmington, which was my first ever Republican state convention. And all of a sudden, they're doing the vote, and they really didn't explain it very well prior to them starting the vote. And a county would say, you know, 2 for one and 1 for another, and the chair reads out, that's 37 votes for Wayne King, 17 or 19 votes for Tim Johnson. And I remember looking at a buddy of mine over there, and I says, what the? And he said, oh yeah, he said, that's how they do this, it's proportion, you know. And an individual doesn't have, as Jack said, in a lot of the larger counties, an individual may not have as much sway because they show up. But when you get in some of these counties that are, you know, if we as a group, movement, whatever you want to call whatever we are that people don't seem to be able to define, if we had concentrated on the 30 counties that are in that middle section of number of legal delegates, we control every one of these chair and vice chair races. So we just need, these are things that, and the reason I put this in this presentation was this is what you need to go back and talk to your people. And if you've got friends, if you've got a friend that lives in any one of those counties that Jack just read off that had no participation, you need to get them on the phone. You can actually get the paperwork. A single individual, back to one other point, a single individual can organize their county Republican Party. And I think it's a $10 or $15 filing fee. But you can request the form from NCGOP. And there were 9 that didn't show up. And if I'm not mistaken, Jack, I think out of those, there were delegates who actually just did personal delegates. The county, quote unquote, was not organized. Correct. But like I said, if you get that list, and I'm sure Jack will find a way to make that available to everybody here in these counties. If you know somebody that's in one of these counties that has 1 person that showed up, or you know somebody that's in one of these counties, I say if they had less than 5 and have more than 50 available delegates, you need to see if you got any friends in those counties that are interested in going to state convention.
About delegates, you said that like if 1 person shows up and they have 100 seats, that person's vote counts for 100.
Yes, sir.
Now you got 2 people shows up, you got an odd number of delegates, they'll see 99 seats.
They actually do have votes.
They have votes.
There were counties that it was like 19 and a half and 19 and a half or whatever but yeah, it's directly proportional. But it is guaranteed in the plan of organization that there will be a vote cast for the chair and vice chair for every available delegate seat in every county that is organized and has somebody on the floor. Again, specifically outlawed is vote by proxy, so don't have to go to the bathroom when you need to put your vote in for your county. Sorry, I know some people at Wilmington that happened to them. Because what happens is you do a ballot, you get a handwritten ballot that then is handed to your county secretary or whoever your designated delegate is, and as they call the counties, that delegate walks up and announces to the floor of the convention, I'm so-and-so position with Cleveland County, and we have 6 votes for Wayne King, and we have 2 votes for Timothy Johnson, or whatever the numbers are. And that was, like I said, it blew my mind when they got to whatever the first county was, and they said, so that'll be 30, and I'm going, hold it. But anyway, just those are things that we can make a really big difference. Yes, sir?
It's just hypothetical. Could you change that rule at the convention?
Yes, I mean,
Can you change it for that convention, or is it after the next?
well, it's
Say
a
it
matter
again.
where you can suspend and amend the rules, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you could. Now, the question is, if you don't prepare, first off, and I'm thinking, didn't somebody try to do that at Wilmington? I'm thinking that motion was put forth at Wilmington. But I don't even think anybody seconded it. Sorry, Wilmington was the first time that many people from the new Republican Party showed up. And they had it set, the old school had it set in their mind, they were quashing anything we wanted to do before we ever got there. But it's called politics. In summary, you must be a registered Republican in your county prior to close of business on January 31 to participate in any party activities. So if you've got friends in going back to the last thing, if you've got friends in counties that are not represented or organized, you got to make sure that they are a registered Republican in their county prior to January 31st. Second thing, you must be involved in your precinct meetings to be involved at any other level in the party. You cannot just show up. Now you can, if your precinct is not organized and you register at your county convention, you're not counting. Now our county, and I don't know how many counties there are where they, I was thinking I'd read it was 70 something, where they do like we do in Cleveland County. Our precinct meetings will be at like 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. County convention will be at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So if you show up and pay your $10 or whatever, and the county can set the fee. You can argue whether it is prohibitive or not, but there is always a fee for the county convention, and it's supposed to be based strictly on the cost to offset what it takes to put on the convention. Venue costs, various other things. Yes, ma'am.
You said you have to go through precinct meeting in order to be eligible to be a delegate in your county convention.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that an absolute?
Because
I know that there have been people that didn't come to the precinct meeting, but yet powers that be.
the only way that can be changed is if it's been specifically outlined in your county plan of organization and properly.
Powers that be.
No, it says specifically in the state plan of organization that the only way you can be a delegate is either be from an unorganized precinct, which means you still show up at the precinct meeting to get on the list. Because all of the delegates to your county convention have to be submitted prior to the opening of the county convention. So in all organized, and basically what happens is, like at our county, every person that showed up all of a sudden became the chair of their precinct. If they were an unorganized precinct, they had they could declare as an unorganized precinct, and if they were at the precinct meeting, they could become a delegate to the county convention. But what most of them did was they were given the opportunity to become the organizer of their precinct. Yes, Scott?
Yeah. Part of the reason for that, maybe the reason, is that there's a credentials committee that takes these names, verifies that you were registered by the 31st of January, you live in your precinct, and they do all that verification before the county convention. The county convention is then where that list is approved.
Now, the other thing,
That's why it's done with those time periods required now.
the one thing,
We do ours on the same day, so our credentials committee has to scurry around between the precinct meeting and the convention to verify all those names. So it's a lot more work on that day, but it's all done.
now the other thing about, the one other thing I did find that I thought was kind of neat. If you are a delegate to your county convention, and you're elected a delegate to the state convention, and somebody else who's a delegate in your county convention challenges your legality or that you meet the qualifications to be a delegate, you can be challenged. And the state convention has to inform you 3 days prior to 10 days. Sorry, didn't write that one down. It's either 3 or 10 days prior to state convention that you have been challenged as a delegate. And basically all you have to do is provide your voter registration information, and they actually have to do the legwork to prove that you're not qualified. Yes, Jack?
One other thing that'll frequently happen at state convention as well as district convention is there will be a motion made that all previous delegates and alternates carry forward into the current year. So that may be a little bit of what happened there. And the result is that they're basically automatically added, and then you're subject to the 10, 12, whatever dollars from the state party charge. But you can also register, a lot of counties allow proxy. So you can submit a registration form, and it is highly recommended, if this is of interest to you, that you do that. Don't go into bed. Everybody in this room has had a flat tire, and you don't know when that flat tire is going to occur. And if you miss registration at the conference, convention, you will not be on the list if your executive committee is.
But the other side of it is, you still, when the election is formally held, you still have to be on the floor. There is no voting by proxy, but yes, you can register by proxy. Yes, sir.
Just to be clear, the qualifications for delegate is just be registered voter.
A registered Republican in your county prior to January 31st. And show up at your precinct meeting.
Which is 2 weeks left.
It depends. It can be as early as the second week, I think it's the second week of February, or the first week of February.
Mecklenburg is the 7th of February, for those that, and that's how early we're talking this, we're getting into the calendar real quick.
But, and again, the other thing that is so crucial, get a copy of your county plan of organization to make sure that something didn't happen at the last convention or the previous convention where there were rules changed. And if you see something that's questionable, the next thing I would do is I would actually go to the state GOP website and look at the copy of your county plan of organization that they have on file. Because that's the one that counts. Like I said, there were some counties that had been doing upgrades of their plan of organization every year. They weren't meeting the credentials submission requirement. And they went back and looked in the plan of organization that the state had on file for that county. In some cases were 10 and 12 years old, and they thought they'd been updated every year, but their executive committee chair and secretary didn't follow through, didn't do the paperwork, didn't get the revised plan of organization submitted within the time frame to the state party. And if it's not there at the end of that time frame, when they close that book on it, whatever the standing, at that point, legal county plan of organization on file at the state, that's the one that stands. Yes, Jeff?
One other thing, we talking a lot about election of executive committee at state convention. One of the other things that occurs at state convention that people in this room may be interested in is we have this little thing called Obamacare. And the 2012 convention, a party platform was adopted that specifically states wise health choices are best made by individuals guided by sound medical opinion. We urge Congress to repeal the federally mandated Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act. A second clause, I'll paraphrase, basically says that we do not believe in incentives to attract business to North Carolina. So when your General Assembly representative tells you that there's nothing he can do about Obamacare, or there's nothing he can do about giving ABC company $1 million to relocate, you can point him to the state platform and say, excuse me, in the state platform it says, so yes you can object to that.
Oh, I brought 50 or 60 copies of the state platform. They're sitting on that table right there behind where Di and Stephen are sitting. So, you're Di,
I'm right, so everybody knows.
and he's Stephen. I'm sorry. But there's a whole stack right over there of copies of the current 2012 as passed by the platform committee at the last state convention in Greensboro.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Like enforcing the platform, is there a way for the, state executive committee to, take away somebody's party affiliation, like a candidate that just going off on the deep end?
Believe it or not, there actually is an action within the rules of the state that they can. Whether it's going to happen or not, it's going to be something that's going to have to be acted on at the convention.
So who would decide that? Would that be the executive committee?
I believe that'd be the executive committee. And then one last most important thing. You must show up. Dick Armey, one of my favorite old school Republicans who became a new schooler once he realized how bad the old school was, went along with exactly what several people before him, but he's the one that voiced it more than anybody I've ever heard at Freedom Works Operation Side. Government goes to those who show up. If you don't show up, you don't get to play. Questions? Yeah, Lee?
All right, going back to the local level, I think I'm vice chair of our precinct now. And the chair sometimes doesn't show up, and I ask if he doesn't show up, can I?
You run the meeting, yes, sir.
No,
You become the chain of command is just like it's just like at the state executive committee. There are, like every district chair and vice chair are members of the executive committee. However, the vice chair doesn't have any voting power unless he is there serving as the chair.
So you're told there's no proxy votes. That's not considered a proxy vote.
No, if you're chair, if you're there for a precinct meeting
Right.
and the chairman isn't, you're the chair. Any other questions? Well, I hope this was helpful, and I thank you very much for your attention.